You are both welcome, gentlemen. Jamil, I will start with you, please. From what you saw on the ground, how different is the official narrative of peace from the reality facing villagers in Katsina State?
Okay, there is a conflicting narrative for the peace deal, just like what you've heard from the story. In some part of Katsina State, like in the Malian Fashi axis, that is the Katsina South, there are attacks, records of attacks here and there, like in Malian Fashi, where communities are still being attacked. And you have heard from the people, they said, despite the peace deal or the peace agreement, these bandits enter into their villages with their guns. They ask their wives to cook food for them. Sometimes they even carry their mattresses and lay on them in front of their houses. So that's the intimidation the locals are facing from that end of the Katsina axis. But when you go back to the other, to Katsina North, along the Basari, Jibia axis and Safana, where also the activities of these bandits is majorly pronounced there, and given the fact that the place is where the notorious Rugu forest is located, the peace is relative there. The bandits have stick to the agreement. They have the ceasefire has happened, and people have resettled back to their communities. Markets have reopened, and activities are going on. But one cannot say whether the people living there are happy with the arrangement, or they are left with no option. That is the only arrangement they have to sort to. So these are the two conflicting realities, here in Katsina. But with regards to the attacks happening in Malian Fashi, the bandit says it's like a warning to the government for not releasing, or for the government not holding to its own side of the bargain, given the fact that this deal happened 6 or 4 months ago. And, it's like a warning that if nothing is done, they will go back to attacking these communities.
Now, Dr. Usoroh, I would like to come to you, especially from a security standpoint. One would actually question what it entails to negotiate with a bandit. But my question to you today is, how do you assess these so-called peace deals with bandits? Are they reducing violence or merely just putting a pause to it?
Certainly, it's not reducing anything, because what one would have expected will be a centralized effort by government. What the state or local government did supposed to be in sync with the policy of the federal government. You cannot just go at the local level. You are negotiating with these killers and making peace deals with them, while at the same time the federal government is making serious efforts to see how they can diminish their operations in the forest and in those ungoverned spaces. So, the fact is that we're going to continue to have these problems. What the local authorities or state authorities are doing, is it in sync with what the federal government is doing? And the answer is no. While the federal government is intensifying efforts to root these outlaws out, from the forest and these other places, the state and the local governments are signing peace deals. So it can't work, because even if at the local level they say, okay, we're not going to arrest you, we're not going to do anything, the federal effort is not that. They're going to be attacking them. So you don't expect to see any peace or anybody keep between the agreement, in this circumstance.
Doctor, before we proceed, I'd like for us to go on a very quick break, but when we return, we get into more detail of this specific story. Please don't go anywhere. Stay with us. You're welcome back. Before the break, we started a interesting conversation regarding the banditry and the peace negotiations in Katsina State. I'm joined now by our correspondent, Jamil Mabai, and Dr. Usoroh. Dr. Usoroh, please, I'd still like to come back with you before I move over to Jamil. My next question to you, Doctor, is what does a credible ceasefire look like in the practical terms, and how can authorities verify the armed groups are actually complying? Doctor, can you hear me?
I think that the government needs to do more. If we are talking about a ceasefire, it should be a policy matter. Okay, we're giving amnesty, which is what I think the government should start doing. We're giving amnesty within the next 1-2 months. So if you're a bandit, surrender peacefully. Nothing will happen to you. In the interim, you have 2 weeks to lay down your arms. You have 1 month to lay down your arms. After that, no amnesty, no negotiation, and then we now go out, all out, and then rout these guys out. And I keep on saying this, you can't appease an enemy, and which is, these are enemies of state. You can appease them. You can call them, like somebody will come take your wife, lie down, sleep with her in your presence, and you think those loopholes will be normal again. So what I think government need to do from the federal level, let's talk about an amnesty. Give those guys a reasonable period of time, 2 weeks, 1 month. Lay down your arms, surrender, and then we can talk about peace.
Yes.
But any other person in any part of the forest, after 1 month, some of the leaders from the north will say, oh, if the government wants to attack, there will be colossal damage, there will be colossal losses. But man, we need to take this head on. But I want to suggest that government can have a kind of peace settlement with them. I don't give a damn to that. Give them an amnesty. Give them a specific period of time. After that, anybody in the forest, kidnapping people, attacking people, going back to have safe havens, we should set fires in all the forests. Thank God in the north, the fire can catch it. But grab these guys out of our forest and then take possession. These are ungoverned places. And because they have these ungoverned spaces, that's why they could come attack and go. So, but I think that the best thing is to give them an amnesty after the expiration of that, then an all-out war. And I'm very, very confident our gallant forces can finish this job in a matter of weeks. Very, very confident.
Now, thank you. Jamil, how credible were the claims made by the bandit leader about observing a ceasefire based on your reporting and the accountability of the community?
Okay, like I told you, we have 2 conflicting, realities here. In the Katsina South, we couldn't get to speak to the bandits living there. The bandits, they have different camps, and but the ones we spoke to, and from what the locals and from what I have seen on ground, there hasn't been any attack. In fact, it was the bandits that even told me in particular that even after the peace deal, just like what the security expert says, there were clashes between them and the federal security operatives, the military. But even after when the military attacked them, they still uphold their promises to stick to the peace agreement. And also there was a time a Fulani woman was, slaughtered by a Hausa community, and she was pregnant. Even the baby, the infant child inside her, was also slaughtered and buried. So, they revealed so much to me. And, from the victims or people living there, they corroborated or they spoke exactly that for the period of the ceasefire, these bandits have not attacked them. And but one can look at it from another perspective, majorly because, these people have gathered a lot of money, a lot of ransom money, and now they have access to markets, they have access to hospitals, because a glance at the hospital, you realize that all their families and children are the one now patronizing primary healthcare centers along those areas. Why? Because for long they have been deprived of that opportunity to go to hospitals. So they're battling this kwashiorkor, hernia, and a lot of illnesses. But from what I have seen on ground in those frontline areas of Safana, Namusa, Basari, and Jibia, the people and the bandits are living peacefully for now. And we don't know what will happen if the government did not uphold its own side of the bargain by releasing their own people. So probably, they might be forced to pick their arms again. But for now, they're living peacefully there. But on the other side, it's a different scenario.
Now, Dr. Usoroh, I would like to come back to you. When we talk about the peace deal, my question to you is the peace deal working? And I ask this because communities continue to report attacks despite official statements that say that a peace deal is in place. Why do communities continue to make these reports if the peace deal is working?
Yeah, it won't work because the issue is that what motivated these bandits in the first place to go attack those poor people living in those areas? It is money. And so if you're talking about having peace deals with them, are you going to be paying them the equivalent of the monies they make from kidnappings? Are you going to be paying them? If the government, whether state or local government, is not going to do that, then there's not going to be any end in sight. They go out to kill, they go out to kidnap, they go out to do all that they do for money. Money for drugs, money for alcohol, money for the kind of lifestyle they have chosen to live. And so if you are not going to give them anything in exchange of the peace, that is money. I mean, one living in a fool's paradise.
But Doctor, sorry, if I can just if I can just interject there. When we talk about a deal, obviously both parties would have had to come to some kind of agreement in order for there to be a deal. Are you then now saying that the peace deal tends to be thwarted because the other end is not getting what was part of the agreement?
Of course, because the other side, the government, the local government, the state, they have not told us what are the contents of the peace deal, or the peace agreement. They only told us, oh, this will say we should have peace with them, they're going to release the victims that they have kidnapped already. But nobody has told us what is the exchange, what is the contract value of the so-called peace deal. And so the truth of the matter is that, which is, again, maybe let me say this, I don't know how long we're going to stay on. My concern has always been that leaders from the North in particular, whether religious or political, or traditional, have not been able to speak to their people. You don't hear people, multiple leaders from this region, come out to speak. Now, if people just take it upon themselves and then go to villages, local settlements, people that were living peacefully, having long here in the north, you go to Katsina, like during summer time, you drive almost all the local governments, merrymaking, very friendly, very loving people. Now, those areas now, somebody cannot dare go. And the truth of the matter is that if somebody suddenly tells you he wants peace, what is the value of the peace? All these kidnappings, all this banditry, all these things they're doing, it is money that is the end game. And so are you going to be paying them? And we hear some leaders from the region say, oh, because these people have been deprived. Deprived of what? Deprived of what? Is there any part of Nigeria that people are not being deprived? So for me, except we come to terms with the fact that we have a problem in our hands, how do you make peace with someone? An armed robber, you say armed robbers, we want to make peace with them so that they will not be going for armed robbery again. Does it make sense? It doesn't. Because what made him to become an armed robber before? I mean, in the first place, when his mates were going to school, when his mates were going to learn trade, when his mates were going to learn handwork, and he needed quick money. And then suddenly you tell the man, come, let's make peace. Somebody who's used to maybe one kidnapping case, they tax people 5 million, 3 million, 10 million, and then they make 100 million. And then you tell them, okay, come, let's make peace. What is the value? And until the local government and the state government, maybe the state government of Katsina, the other time the commissioner, they were saying that if people don't like that, they can go to court.
Yes.
So
Doctor,
but the truth of the matter is that this thing will continue.
Yeah, if I can, I'm going to come back to you on my final remarks with that, but I'd like to come back to Jamil, who was on ground. Jamil, what risks did you encounter while reporting in these communities, and how did residents describe their day-to-day security situations?
Okay, like I told you earlier, the risk, was traveling to Katsina South, where I shared with you what the victims there told me, despite, the ceasefire, the bandits do attack them, mount blockade on roads, take their motorcycles, rustle their cows and what have you. And the most intimidating aspect of that is when they shared how the bandits will just, enter communities, ask their wives to cook food for them, and maybe to an extent of taking their mattresses, lying to lay on in front of their houses, so that to them it's intimidating, and that was what forced these communities to carry their arms again and begin to defend their communities in that particular axis. But in the other axis, in Katsina North, I slept in Safana local government, and 7 months ago, with no matter what, I can never dare to go to Safana local government, come to think of sleeping there. And while I was heading to Basari, on a typical day, I would come through Katsina again, then to take Basari axis. But from there, I passed through the Rugo forest, even though the place there is less movement of, cars and what have you, but I followed there, and you cannot go there unless you have people, over time we have built network of fixers around that axis that knows the terrain, and with them you are safe. So that was how I was able to navigate those axes. And for me, I'm used to areas like that, so it's nothing scary to me. I see.
Jamal,
but just to add to what the expert said, there were conditions attached to these agreements, and part of the conditions, that I understood, because in Jibia I spoke to the bandits and I spoke to the communities and the committee that was in charge of mediating the peace process, and they told me that part of what they agreed was, first, there must be a ceasefire. That was the deal, and they gave the bandits like a month. So after the period of a month, the bandit did not attack any place. Then they came back and sat together, and they agreed, okay, the bandits will allow people to have access to their farmlands. They will allow displaced families or communities to resettle back to their communities. They will stop carrying their ammunition into these communities. And in return, the bandits will be allowed access to markets. They will be allowed access to hospitals and what have you. And in return also, the bandits also, they demanded that the government should build schools for them.
Jamil, I'm going to have to cut you.
Cattle ranch.
I'm going to have to cut you. I think the biggest question is, as you are giving us that breakdown, what they get in return is a big question. But hopefully, in the days to come, that story will unravel and we'll get to the bottom of this report. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for your time.